Hello, I'm back. So this time I'm talking about Terraform Core. So you know what a provider is, right? We talked about providers before, how to use them and whatnot. Uh, but I want to talk about what Terraform is in its core. Uh, in the first episode, I showed you this diagram, right? And I said this is Terraform Core, and then you see something called Terraform state file, and then it's Terraform configuration, and then this is where you write stuff and then you plan and then you apply. I want to go over like this part, basically the state. Like in next episode we'll talk about state file, but right now I want to talk about the core of what we call. We talked about Terraform, that Terraform is a declarative way to define infrastructure, but how it does it is, and all that, right? In last video we also talked about not messing around with the state, because state is the source of truth. So in this video we'll talk about how the state is source of truth. So what Terraform does, in reality, was when we define something, when we define a resource and we say, okay, give me an AWS instance. Terraform doesn't know, right, what an instance is. It uses a provider to figure that out, right? Uh, Provider exposes that AWS instance resources to it. So Terraform core is a resource management system. Anything that is a resource, it can manage it, right? I talked about someone writing a Terraform provider to buy a stocks, right? I think it was Karan dev. One second. Uh, Yeah, so found it. So this is a Terraform provider to buy stocks from Zeroda. Because why not, right? This shows you that like Terraform can manage any resources. So you see here it's managing a kite holding called Kestrel, buying Kestrel 30 from NSE, right? And then it shows you the order ID after it creates an order, right? Uh, so yeah, I mean it in its core it's a resource manager that helps you manage state of the resource in a declarative way, uh, and then you expose different resources through providers, right? So we also talked about reconciliation loop, right? So what Terraform does is whenever you define a resource in Terraform will build a state of that resource, and state is how Terraform sees that resource, right? So let's say you define the resources and then you do a TF apply, right? So that will create that resource on your AWS account. So now Terraform will write some information in its state to create that mapping between the code block that you have that defines that resource, and then the actual resource in AWS. And that information is stored in a state file. It's a big JSON file that has uh, all the information, right? So if you don't have something in state, Terraform doesn't know about it. So let's say you have an instance called web server 1. uh, you went to AWS, created it. Now you come to Terraform, define a resource AWS instance, give it a name, web server 1. When you'll do TF apply, Terraform will create a new one, because Terraform doesn't know about the one that you created by hand. You never told it. It's not in the state, right? So if you lose your state file, Terraform will recreate everything, because it doesn't know, right? So state file, like similar to how React has a state and a virtual DOM and a real DOM, uh, and it basically compares the state and applies the changes. Terraform also does that similar thing, right? So whenever you do something, whenever you apply something, whenever you create something, Terraform will write it into its state file, uh, and do the change. Like after that, if you go and modify your remote resource, go to AWS UI and change your AWS instance, uh, and you run TF apply again, Terraform will say, okay, the remote has changed, but from my point of view, it should have this configuration let's say you went to the UI and changed the RAM size to 8 GB before it was 4 GB. And if you do TF apply again, and if your code says 4 GB, uh, then Terraform will say, I'm going to modify that resource and change its RAM back to 4 GB, because you didn't update, right? So Terraform uses the code plus the state to build the plan, uh, and like find out what it should be instead of what it already is, and then create a plan that I need to make this action uh, to reconcile the external, like target, uh, into what I have. So that's pretty much it. So the configuration plus state is what you would call a Terraform project. And yeah, that's that's it. See you in the next video.